Hey everyone, Behaviour Radio, episode number 281. Tom B is in the house with me. Tom, say hello.
Hello.
Very musical. I'm not sure how musical we're feeling. It is the aftermath of a long weekend. We've just come back from SFN Expo. If anyone attended SFN Expo, which is the Scottish Fitness Expo, and you said hello to us, thank you for coming. It is a really, really good event. There's a lot of very good people, and I don't mean to kind of like hate on the hardcore side of bodybuilding, but because that's not a passion area of mine, and I don't think that is the majority of fitness, it was nice to see the Scottish Fitness Expo have a lot more of other stuff, because when it first started, it felt like it was quite bodybuilding orientated, and then it started to have like CrossFit in it, and powerlifting and strongman, and just like loads of other stuff, and there was just a really good vibe in the room, and just a mixture of everyone. There wasn't a lot of one thing, there was a lot of everything, and there was genuinely a lot for everyone, and I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I've always liked about SFN is that they do tend to focus more on like the performance sports and the more, obviously showing my bias here, but the more like enjoyable side of fitness in comparison to the hardcore, as you say, the bodybuilding crowd and the focusing solely on physique. It's just nice to see other people with beards walking around, to be honest.
I'll tell you what was really cool. Tony Pang, who's an amazing personal trainer based in Scotland. He's got a decent online profile. You might have seen him kicking around. He's an ex-BTN Academy student, and I did a Q&A with him on stage, and it was really nice to sit on stage with like an ex-student that we've taught, a guy that's really respected in the physique world, because he's a bodybuilder, that is his thing, and it was really nice, and we kept like bouncing off each other really well. Our opinions were really aligned, and we kept picking up on different things, and that was like really humbling to almost sit on the stage with an ex-student. It was just really nice.
That's really cool. Yeah, it's always good to see like students when they've done really well. Like we've got a few students who did the academy like a couple of years ago, and we're like, Jesus, you've really used this, and now you're like way further in your career than you were before. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, it's amazing. If anyone wants to know more about the Body Type Nutrition Academy, we actually launch our new Practical Academy mid-November. We're starting on the 13th of November. So if you want to join in, if you want to become a nutritionist, if you want to coach other people, or you might be sitting there thinking, do you know what, I just love to know everything there is about nutrition, just for myself, other people. That's actually how I started out in the fitness industry. I did a personal training course just so I could train myself better, and then I was like, actually, this stuff's really cool, I want to do it as a job. So if you want to join us for a year, you want to learn everything there is to know about nutrition, you'll get taught by myself, Tom, dietitians, researchers, loads of other really cool people. You can do it wherever you are in the world. You'll join our community. You'll embrace every area of nutrition. If you want to get involved, go to bodytypenutrition.co.uk. Click on the Academy tab, explore the Practical Academy, and see if it's right for you. We start in mid-November. Have a look. If you've got any questions, reach out to us. We're always on the end of the interweb for you to ask questions. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this intake because, as you said, it's the new syllabus. So anyone that's sort of had a look at the syllabus before, it was updated a few days ago now. So if you want to go and have a look at it again, I think it's got a lot of stuff in that I think the fitness industry is lacking at the minute, and I think a lot of people are going to be very impressed with what they see.
Yeah, and if there are any current and past students listening to this podcast, remember, you get lifelong access to all our courses. So if we change anything, you get all the benefits, you get all the updated coursework, course content, everything. So don't think, oh, it sounds better. You get those benefits too.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. And just to finish off, it was amazing to see people at SFN like Shelley McCoy. I did a snatch workout with her, and we ended up with a really big crowd around us, which was really cool. It was great to see the lean machines. I met some people that I'd never met before. It was great to see Andy McKenzie, Phil Graham. So it was a great event. The people that organised it, well done. We had a great time, and we'll be there next year.
Hell yeah.
Right, otherwise, we've got a load of questions from you, which we're looking forward to getting stuck into. Before I say that, as of this podcast going live, Awesome Supplements Vegan Protein is in stock. Awesome Supplements Daily Dose is in stock. We're sorry that we keep going out of stock, but these items are hugely popular because I'll be honest, we've done an incredible job at creating them. But they are in stock, so if you want to grab them, go to awesomesupplements.co.uk. Right, Thomas, what questions have we got today?
So we've got 3 really cool questions today, and I'm hoping we kind of get to all of them, but we'll start with the first. So, hi Ben, I've been listening to your podcast for a while now, and I have to say it's always so interesting and informative, and has really helped me to make some positive changes and improvements in my health and fitness. So firstly, thanks a lot for doing what you do. My question is fairly brief and to do with eczema. I've tried to catch up on most of your podcasts, and I don't think you've covered this in a lot of detail previously, but apologies if you have. Basically, I've had eczema for quite a while now. I'm 21, and it's been an issue on and off since I was about 10. So although I'm used to it, I still find it very frustrating. When you've spoken before about your own journey into health and fitness, I know you've mentioned eczema being a problem for you before you got healthy, so I'm interested to know how you went about dealing with it, or if there are just any general insights you might have about it. It would be really useful to hear any thoughts on how nutrition, exercise, sleep, etc. may affect eczema, if at all. Again, apologies if you already covered this in a previous podcast. Best wishes, Hannah.
So this is something that I have operated on as a coach purely from kind of my own experience, which led me into kind of assumptions in my coaching practice. And actually, my exploration of eczema and food is only ever stopped there because I've never been forced to actually look any further. So let me explain what I mean. When I was younger, I found that my eczema and my skin issues were related to cow's dairy in my diet. So I took them out of the diet, and don't get me wrong, I didn't have really bad eczema. I just had like patches on the inside of my elbows. Like, you know, comparatively, it wasn't as bad as, you know, some that we see. I took dairy out of the diet, and it improved. Well, it went, if I'm honest. And the dairy for me also had a kind of link with my ENT pathway, my ear, nose, and throat. I noticed that I kind of got a little bit like claggy in my throat, kind of got a bit of mucus and phlegm. Anyway, at the time, the coach I was working with who helped me identify this stuff also had eczema, Ben Gray, who was the co-owner of my gym. He had eczema, and it was worse than mine. And we explored it in his diet, and it was dairy as well. And I've previously worked with, I'm going to say, around 15 people. It's not huge in my kind of time as a coach that have had skin issues. And nearly on all those occasions, there has been some kind of link with dairy. Now, again, because I've kind of gone through this assumptive process with my own experience and had it confirmed with other people, I've just said to my clients, and this is always my opinion with things that seem to be wrong with the human body and health. If you feel your way through your nutrition and you're like, do you know what, I ate that thing and I got a reaction, we have to logically say, why don't we just take out that thing and see if that response improves? And that's what I did. That's what I did with other people, and I decided I saw some correlation. So I don't know if there's actually a huge amount of research here. It's not anything I've actually been forced to look into, and Tom might have an opinion on this, but even if it's not dairy, I would raise the question, is there something in your diet that's causing your eczema or skin issue to flare up? Now, I will put a caveat in here. As a coach, it's quite often hard to deal with skin issues because they take a long time to show kind of healing, basically. Like IBS, if you were intolerant to eggs, for example, and you stopped eating eggs, you should see an improvement in your IBS pretty quickly because the food isn't actually in transit through your gut. Whereas the skin, for example, it's going to take a huge amount of time for an eczema patch to heal up. So you might take the food out of your diet, but the eczema might not seem like it's making any improvement for like a good 2, 3, 4 weeks. Now, saying that, some skin conditions have a secondary symptom of kind of like itching or feeling kind of like warm, hot, just generally irritated. So that would be the first symptom I would look to see if it had improved, because that would be kind of more acute inflammation.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I just, before I start, I really appreciate your use of the word claggy there. That was really well placed. Cool. So I had a look around on the web this morning when I was trying to research before this podcast, and I came across a pretty cool write-up from the University of Maryland Medical Center. So that's like a research hospital. So they perform on like things with patients, but they also do sort of primary research on their own. And a lot of what they've put here, to be fair, you've probably, if you've got eczema, you'll have heard this advice already. So it's avoid being overly dry or overly moist all of the time. Stay in temperate conditions. Don't wear clothes that bug your skin. Don't use it like soaps with scents and stuff in. But one of the sort of main things that I came across was essentially sort of what you said. So the quote is, researchers do not know for sure what causes eczema. It may be a combination of hereditary and environmental factors. In many people, allergies trigger eczema. So if you are consuming something that you do have some form of allergic reaction to, obviously the usual ones that we'll mention, because they're sort of common ones, would be dairy, there might be wheat, soy, eggs and shellfish. I think they're the 5 main allergens that you find in your diet, or peanuts as well, obviously. That's something that you might want to look at. So if you do have a lot of that in your diet, especially around the times when you notice these flare-ups come about, then yeah, it's the logical thing. If you eat a thing that does something bad, take the thing out and see if the bad thing goes away. Other sort of little bits and bobs that I came across that were quite interesting. Apparently 1.8 gram of EPA and DHA, so they are the 2 healthy fats in fish oil, can potentially reduce the inflammation and potentially also reduce the actual rashes themselves. So that's sort of the standard dose of fish oil that most people who supplement with it would take. And the final big one would be stress. So lifestyle stress, mental stress, all of that background stuff, that can also sort of increase inflammation, and eczema is fundamentally an issue with skin inflammation. That's why corticosteroids can help to get rid of it. So if you are a particularly stressed person, again, just as we'd always recommend, looking for various different like methods to deal with stress and also deal with the cause of stress are probably going to be really useful for you.
One last thing I did at the time, and actually I don't really know how much of a difference this made at the time, but in the back of my mind there's always a slight, as a healthcare practitioner, I think there's a thing in the back of my mind that makes me question some of the things that we use in our environment, and we have to kind of maybe bring up the topic of skincare products. Now, the body has the ability to absorb things depending on its particle size through the skin. So if you are, and especially if you're sensitive, if you're putting a lot of, we'll call them chemicals onto the skin, we have to maybe think whether they are irritating it. That's why that Maryland report sort of says, maybe use things that are very, gentle on the skin, have minimal ingredients. And I just think in the back of my mind, I'd want to use products that are fairly minimal on the ingredient list anyway, because, how much do we know about all these different things that are in our products? I've always felt that my skin has behaved or been a little bit kind of just higher quality, A, with a good diet, and B, with maybe considering the things that go on my skin. So it might just be something that you look at, using slightly more natural soaps, using, there's several skincare brands that really pride themselves on a minimal ingredient list, like Simple. It is one that is in the supermarket quite a bit. It's just something I'm concerned with, but I'm not going to sit here and kind of list a load of ingredients, go and say, be careful of this, be careful of that. I just think it's in the back of my mind, it's something I am mindful of.
Yeah, I mean, my sister used to have really bad eczema. I mean, eczema is one of those things that it's really common up until the age of about 2, and then it can kind of come back a lot during adolescence, especially if you're overweight. But when she was in adolescence, she just basically had to stop using any scented soaps. All of that stuff really bugged it. So the recommendation is just use a mild soap or non-soap cleanser, or just less soap than usual. Simple is a really good brand that you mentioned there. I think Serenity Spa do some really good hypoallergenic stuff. But other than that, as we've mentioned, just sort of check out, make sure that you're not eating anything that is bugging it, especially, and also consider that stress factor.
I think with something like a skin condition, it's very easy to become, I'm going to say, at one with your condition. Like you get itchy skin, it's there for a while, and then you kind of just like, oh yeah, I'm that person with that itchy skin. And I see so few people embrace wanting to improve that because it's so easy to deal with. But if you've got something dietary that's linking to something external, like on the skin, like the body is having a problem producing skin cells, the skin, like a massive component of our body, you've got to say, okay, what's the rest of my insides like? Like, how is my gut? How is the rest of my organs behaving if I'm getting this non-ideal health sign on the surface of my skin? For me, I really want people to take that step and say, no, actually, I really want to sort this because, and we know this in autoimmune conditions, that one autoimmune condition quite often leads to a higher susceptibility of another autoimmune condition. So if we have a thing going on in the body, what other things could that be leading to or might already be a problem? So that's me trying to get you guys listening to this to really strive for optimal levels of health. And the skin is a key sign of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think before we close off this question, I think it's just worth clarifying. Like, obviously, our frame on this podcast is heavily to do with nutrition, so we very much approached this question with like a heavy bias towards the nutrition side. But I just want to make sure, obviously, all the listeners kind of take away from this that there could be a lot of other allergens that are potentially causing problems. So, just daft stuff: is your house really dusty? Have you recently got a new pet that you might be having some sort of interaction with? It's one of those things because, as I mentioned in the report, that not entirely sure what it is, and it's probably linked to allergies. But people can be allergic to all sorts of stuff. So it could be quite a long journey to sort of isolate that one factor, but it's something that's definitely worth exploring.
Last point, I was actually, I met my mum earlier on today, and she started talking about her own skin, nails, and her hair. And ages ago, I know this might seem like a really sad kind of birthday present, but ages ago I gave my mum a tub of Daily Dose for her birthday. I did the same for my granddad. And, when you get old, you quite like functional presents. Like, I really like a book and like, a kitchen gadget, like things I'm going to use rather than like a clothes voucher. Anyway, I gave my mum a tub of Daily Dose, and she said she's been using it for a month, and she has noticed that her skin and nails feel stronger. They just feel of better quality. So I'm not going to sit here and say awesome Daily Dose is amazing. What I'm going to say is that when you get your micronutrition right and you provide on a vitamin and mineral level for the building blocks that your body needs to make good quality hair, skin, nails, that kind of stuff, you get great results. So, again, it just links from an allergen point of view, but a general health point of view. If you want to glow on the inside out, you've got to give your body the things it needs to glow on the inside and out.
Oh yeah, I mean, I saw some preliminary data when I was looking at this that said potentially that zinc or vitamin D deficiency could exacerbate eczema. So yeah, if your diet's lacking in essential nutrients, then they need to come from somewhere.
Sweet.
Cool. We shall move on to question 2. Before we do, I just want to clarify: listeners won't be able to realize this, but anyone that's watching this on Facebook or YouTube, I'm not actually drinking whiskey. I'm drinking tea from a very small glass cup.
I was actually round. I was at Tom's house yesterday because we had our team meeting there, and Tom made some pu'er tea, which is my first experience of pu'er tea. I've actually got some at home that I've never broken into from my trip to China, because the guy that gave it to me said this is very expensive. Like if you're gonna open it, make sure you treat it well and drink it right and stuff. I was like, okay, and it kind of scared me. I've never drunk it. Anyway, we had tea at Tom's house, and I probably had about 30 cups of tea at Tom's house, but only because each cup is a mouthful.
Yeah, the tiny little cups. But yeah, I just thought I'd just point that out because we might get questioned if I'm just getting hammered on the podcast. So, hi Ben. I'm an avid new listener of your podcasts and follow you on multiple social networks. Thanks for all the help you provide us, remarkably for free. My question is in regards to losing weight. I'm a 21-year-old female standing at 5'7" and 75 kilos. I've always been sporty and loved the gym. Keeping it completely real, at age 18 I had plastic surgery, breast implants, and my love for the gym took a turn as I no longer craved the slim bikini physique. The breast augmentation actually reduced my want to compete. It changed my appearance from slim pear to an hourglass. So instead I enjoyed being curvy and time passed. Reflecting on this time now a few years later, it seems like actually a rather bad excuse to let go of myself and bad habits formed. I still consider myself in okay shape, but certainly not the best. I'm at least 10 kilos heavier. As mentioned in the title, my boyfriend who I live with is a rugby player like yourself, but plays prop, therefore comfortably sits at around 18 stone. He trains multiple times a week and plays on Saturdays. This weight suits him, and considering how heavy that is, he doesn't have an overweight appearance. I train 3 to 4 times a week, consisting of 30 minutes of cardio and weight training, and my diet is tracked from Monday to Friday. But then on the weekend we go crazy. We're huge food lovers and binging will be putting it moderately. I've come to realise that I'm undoing all of my effort in the week to lose weight with those weekend binges. I really appreciate you've covered this already, so it's not really the question. And that is something I need to sort out. But I suppose my question is, when being such a food lover and living with someone who can eat whatever they like and needs a comparatively huge calorie intake, how do I resist the urge to join in? How do I separate myself? I'm desperate to lose weight and enjoy the gym again. I struggle with the fact my partner is adamant he prefers me curvy, so I always find myself using this as an excuse for the shitty weekend diet and non-existent weight loss. But in reality, I'm miserable and annoyed at my constant failure and excuses. If you could cover this in a podcast, that would be amazing. I also appreciate you must have hundreds of requests and it might not have a chance, but either way, I'll keep being a keen follower of your refreshingly honest work. Thanks, Ben. Kind regards, Emily.
So this question I think is really cool because it's nothing to do with diet and nutrition. It's to do with how we best moderate our environment and really work as, in this instance, a team. This is a partnership. You're in a relationship, long-term relationship, and it sounds like, to me, you haven't properly sat down and talked about your own goals and how your own goals can work in tandem with one another, and that you're just trying to fit into his mold a little bit more because, by the sounds of it, his mold is a little bit more fun. Like, he's going out at the weekend, he's probably having quite a few beers, he's able to eat what he wants, and actually not doing that doesn't sound as fun as, maybe not eating as much and, putting a lid on a couple of things. So I think the first thing to do is actually talking to your partner about the fact that, yes, he likes you curvy and he doesn't mind the way that you are currently. You have a personal goal to be a little bit slimmer and to reclaim the body that you felt that you had, however many years ago. So I think you need to kind of sit down and talk about a strategy of how you can work in tandem. The reality is your boyfriend can eat what sounds like at least 2 times what you eat. A, because of his mass, and B, because of his activity. So you've got some options. You've got to strategically eat a lot less than him. You've got to increase your energy output a lot more so that you can start to eat a lot more, because the more you move, the more that you can eat. But ultimately, I think you've got to join hands in this process a little bit more. So it sounds like he plays rugby at the weekend like I do. He, has a good meal afterwards. There's beers involved. You maybe join him up the club. There's a load more beers, maybe some food. And then Sunday, you might just sort of laze around, eat what you want, go to the cinema, go around friend's house, and just basically indulge. But your outcome isn't meeting the current environment that you're in, and you're unhappy with that. So you've got to think about your Saturday for a start. Like, could you maybe join him in his social environment a bit later on in the day? So, for example, on a Saturday, could you get up and try and eat like a really low calorie diet during the day? Maybe eat something small before you go out, and then go enjoy your boyfriend for a good couple of drinks. So in essence, you create yourself some room to have a greater amount of calories in the evening. And then when you get up the next day, rather than sort of just leaving your diet to chance, why don't you take the reins and say, do you know what? Why don't I cook us a nice breakfast? and you cook something that you're in control with, rather than getting up, seeing maybe what's in the fridge, there not being anything there, your boyfriend suggesting going out for breakfast or just having something that's kicking around. If you plan as much as possible around that environment where you say it kind of goes pear-shaped, then you're in control of that outcome. And to be honest, if my girlfriend said, "Oh, do you want me to cook breakfast Sunday morning?" I'd be like, yeah, I would like you to cook breakfast. I tell you what, I'll lay in bed cuddling the dog and you can cook breakfast. So I think all that's really lacking here is a really honest, open conversation with what you want and how you want your partner's support. And then actual just strategic nuts and bolts planning of what you're going to eat, what you're doing, having the food in the house, and just getting the buy-in with your partner in that process.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've shown a lot of like self-awareness here, because you've noticed exactly where it is that you're kind of falling down. And I mean, it's really important to sort of say, because obviously humans are social creatures, that the vast majority of our environment is made up of other people. So surrounding yourself by people who support you in your goals is really important. And obviously the only two real options there, one of them is not something that I'm going to suggest. So the other option is going to have to be, we just need to have a conversation with your partner and just sort of work out, as Ben said, kind of how you can work together on achieving a goal that will make you both happy. I mean, obviously he says he prefers you curvy, and that's fine, but it's nothing to say that losing weight is going to get rid of that anyway. But essentially, my suggestions were going to be basically the same as Ben's, because it is going to be a case of damage limitation. And it's good as well to say that you're not exactly alone in this. Like, I've seen research a while ago, and I can't for the life of me remember the researcher, but he discovered essentially that two people that live together will adapt their diet upwards towards the person who eats more. So if you get someone who's at a healthy weight and someone who's overweight, or someone who's 5'7" and someone who's an 18-stone rugby player living together, then the smaller person will eventually start to adapt their nutritional intake to line up a little bit closer to the bigger eater. So being aware of that's really important, and it's something that will be relatively simple to fix, if not necessarily easy. And it just comes down to conversation.
Yeah, I think everything is solved in life by effective communication. And, it might be that actually your partner, he might like you a little bit slimmer like you used to be. Because the chances are, right, when two people get together, they usually are sexually attracted to that person in the current form. That's usually what happens. So man meets eye across woman, in the bar. He goes, "Oh, she looks good. I like the way she kind of looks and stuff." And then you build on that by talking to them and seeing that there's massive rapport and stuff. So if you kind of drift away from that, now your partner might be, he might be being a little bit nice. He might not want to hurt your feelings and say, "Do you know what? Yeah, I love you, curvy," but in the back of his mind, he might be thinking, "Do you know what? I love you, curvy, but actually, you did look better when you were like a stone and a half lighter." And, there's an awful lot of guys that would maybe not say that because they don't want to have a handbag round their chops, because that's rarely taken in a very positive way. But we need to have the freedom and ability in our relationships to be able to say that honestly and openly. Like, especially if you're feeling that way, like if you've aired that emotion that you feel that you've let yourself go a little bit, that you preferred yourself, the way that you say that to your partner might allow him to express honestly how he's actually feeling about that. And, I'll be honest, I've done that with my girlfriend before. Like, there's always periods in a relationship where you let yourself go a little bit. And I remember, my girlfriend saying, "Do you know what, I'm going to go on a bit of a diet again." And we talked about how I can help her and stuff. And I mentioned, I was like, "Do you know what, I did prefer you when you were a little bit smaller, just because your legs looked really good. Like, you looked better physically. And don't get me wrong, that does have an effect on how sexually attracted I am to you." And we can't ignore that. Like, if you're going to be in a relationship for 30, 40, 50 years, you have to maintain an element of looking after yourself for each other, because you have to keep that kind of, a certain amount of lust alive in a relationship and stuff. And I think for us to say that, oh, it kind of doesn't matter as you age. I'll be honest, I think that's just people kidding themselves to kind of just be nice and not hurt feelings, because I always feel that people need to have that, real sexual attraction for each other there. And don't get me wrong, there'll be a point in a relationship where maybe it really doesn't become an issue when you're, I'm not going to put an age bracket on it because it's different for everyone. And that will change, but in 10, 15, 20 years of a relationship, I still think that needs to be there for both man and woman.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just as kind of like a spin-off from that as well, if you sort of had these thoughts and thought, what, I would feel better if I looked however, or I would feel better if I wasn't carrying this 10 kilos that I've gained, then it shouldn't really matter what your partner says in response to that, because that's a goal that you set for yourself to make yourself feel better. And it's not necessarily that you were saying that because, I want to be more attractive for you. It's, no, I wanted to lose this because then I'll feel better about myself. And therefore, it's not necessarily a problem whether he says he prefers you curvy or not. It's your life, and it's up to you to be happy for it.
100%. I think maybe it's another problem in relationships, that you feel that you might kind of like leave someone behind a little bit when you kind of change, and you kind of feel bad for the other person. But if you love someone, you're happy for the improvements that they want to make in themselves. And if it's if you're improving yourself, I don't see how someone wouldn't find that more attractive, because most people to a degree are wired the same way. We like people to a degree to kind of be strong and slim and glowing and have energy and have this kind of aura about it. And when you improve things, that kind of whole kind of view of someone being in good health and a strong of mind and body is usually only something that increases someone's warmth and attractiveness to someone else.
Yeah, I mean, far be it from me to give relationship advice, being that I'm still in my mid-20s, but I do think it's one of those things where if you improve yourself to the maximum amount that you can, as far as your understanding of the word improvement goes, if that makes sense. So you sort of set a label and say, right, this is my target, this is the best me that I could be. If you move towards that, then the people who should be in your life will sort of warm to it, and they will sort of appreciate the improvement for what it is. And people who will sort of get in the way of that, they're not looking out for your best interests, they're looking out for their own. So honestly, I think your boyfriend might have just been being nice. And if he is a good boyfriend, which I've got no reason whatsoever to assume that he isn't, I think he will support you wholeheartedly in whatever you want to do.
I think so, definitely. It would be nice to think that this podcast goes and spurs like 50, 100, 500, I don't know, really honest conversations between couples. That would be really cool, because I think this stuff is so important. Long-term relationships are the bread and butter of our future. Like we're creating lives with other people. We're having kids with other people. We're buying houses together, and all of those have to be entered into in pure 100% honesty. We need to be able to have really open conversations. It sounds a little bit weird kind of talking about this, because I do know that there is a podcast coming that's already been recorded with a relationship expert. So look out for that podcast. I did it with Susan Winters. She's she's really famous, to be honest, in America. So I had a conversation with her about relationships, and it was a fascinating podcast. And I actually talked a lot about myself again, and relationships that I've had, because again, I'm willing to put myself out there and add context, see other people can relate to it. Because if we don't use this kind of like element of case studies and where we've been and what we've felt, it's going to be really hard for you guys to relate to that information. So that's why I try and be as kind of raw as possible myself, so that you guys can go, okay, yeah, I've felt that before. And really that's just... that's all we're trying to do, right? We're just trying to be honest with ourselves, live better lives, have better performance, get more out of the input that we put in from this information that we acquire.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's got to be the goal of any podcast like this, really. It's like, even if we go off on tangents, it's as long as it's a useful tangent that people can relate to, then happy days.
100%. Right, Tom, that's us out of questions.
That is us out of questions.
I thought we had 3. We had 2. It doesn't matter.
I think we have a comment rather than a question that we'll go through now if you want.
Is it the thing about the strength training?
Yeah.
I think we've already read that out, haven't we?
We'll just assume that we have, and then we'll check. We'll check later, so as not to repeat content.
You've got a better memory than me. I don't know. The thing is, I was reading through these questions earlier, and I was like, we've already done this, but then I have to read through them to build the show, so I just don't know.
No, honestly, we haven't done this before, so we'll do it now. Yeah.
All right, go.
Hi, Ben. I've been listening to your podcast on and off for a while now. I really like your mindset and how you approach both training and nutrition. I just wanted to drop you a line and say how much I thought your episodes on strength training were bang on the money. At last, somebody in the fitness industry has dared to say that not all programs are meant for all people. We live in a society where the top 1% of athletes in any given sport are shoved in our faces, TVs and computer screens, to the point that we're supposed to believe that we can be like them if we just do this or take that. Truth is, for the remaining 99%, getting fit and healthy is hard work and takes time, lots of time. So these off-the-peg training systems won't work for us all the time because they weren't designed for us mere mortals with normal lives and normal genetics. People suffer from information overload and the fear of missing out because they've been told over and over that they have to do this new and awesome training system if they want to be thought of as fit and strong. I found it such a shame and fairly hilarious that so many closed-minded people took offence to what you said and berated you for it. They obviously didn't listen properly and are clearly the types who go to a gym to polish their egos and measure manhoods. I loved what you were saying about a hybrid approach to training that covers all bases and gets you fit for life. I'm a 39-year-old firefighter who played a bit of rugby until my hamstrings said no more. I've dabbled in most of the off-the-peg training styles but never found a good fit that holds my interest for more than a few weeks. I weight train, run and cycle. My goals are to be strong and functional. Looking badass on the beach at 40 will be a bonus too. If you have any more information or suggestions on where I can get more information, I'd appreciate hearing back from you. Anyway, just wanted to give you some positive feedback after hearing how much stick you've got. Many thanks, Andy.
Well, thank you very much, Andy. Tom had a lingering pause in the middle there, so I had to laugh. He also left out the word that Andy used, which was overly sensitive people, I think that's Tom being nice to people. Do you know what? I actually did a talk at SFN over the weekend about how to look. It was called How to Look and Perform Like an Athlete. And, I talked about kind of where Andy's trying to get to with his body and where I'm trying to get to with my body is to feel great every day and be productive, but also to look pretty legit as well. And there was some key points I highlighted to people, which was, what is actually your goal? Like, not what you see on social media or anything like that. What is your goal? Like, is it that you want to be a bodybuilder or a CrossFit athlete or play rugby or football or whatever it is? It doesn't matter. After that, you need to apply the training system that is going to give you the right kind of outcome. So you have to be performance training based for the outcome. If you want to look awesome, you kind of need to train a little bit like a bodybuilder, lots of volume, lots of muscular stimulus, have a bit of strength work in there, condition your body. If you want to be a CrossFit athlete, you're going to have to be very multidisciplined. If you want to be a rugby player, you're going to have to do 2 to 3 pitch sessions, 2 to 3 gym sessions. Everything's got to be related to the goal. But in creating a anxiety-free, kind of realistic mindset towards all of this, I think you do have to follow the right kind of people on the internet. So if you look at me with my clothes off, I'll keep pants on for you, so don't go full bore. If you look at me with my clothes off and consider my genetics, I'm someone that's been training pretty tough for about 12 years, consistently as well. I've built a half decent physique. Like when I'm lean, I'm looking, fairly cover model, however you want to look at it. I'm a guy with pretty average genetics. I've never taken steroids, but I do things consistently most of the time. So I think people can look at me and go, oh, well, actually, I'm a guy with average genetics and I'm willing to put in the work over a number of years. I could look like that. But the problem is we're not following people that realistically are, aligned with us. You might be following people with superb genetics. Like I met very briefly Simeon Panda, I think that's how you pronounce his name, at SFN. And the guy's got an incredible rig on him. Like, he's like, if we, painted a picture of the perfect physique, muscles and that, it would be him. I don't have that guy's genetics. I'm never going to look like him. So I'm not gonna follow him as an inspiration, because that would be malaligned to the outcome that I'm actually going to be able to get without assistance. So I think we've got to consider the tools that we need to use to get the job done. Be realistic with our genetics, and that's not to say that you can't achieve great things with average genetics, because you can. I'm pretty happy with how I look with my top off, regardless of what everyone else thinks. And just be, pretty realistic with that process, but, know that consistency most of the time is going to get us towards where we want to be.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to genetics, obviously, for like a large amount of it, but also we need to look at like your values. I mean, you've got to think these athletes that are sort of thrown in our face on social media, their main thing is their training. They're almost invariably early to mid-20s, not a lot of time commitments, not a lot of family commitments. Don't get me wrong, there are obviously going to be exceptions to that rule, so it's not like a hard and fast thing, but if you have time commitments, if you have a normal job, and not just that, if you value other stuff, then it's a bit unreasonable to expect that your physique will look like someone's who does value their training above everything. I mean, as Ben said, like, I'm pretty happy with how I look with my kit off, but I would be a lot leaner apart from the fact that I value beer more than abs. And it's just one of those things that we do have to sort of come to terms with. Like, we need to sort of accept, right, okay, I don't value exercise training and sort of being strict with my own nutrition as much as somebody else. Therefore, my results from those things won't be the same. As far as like people to follow, I think probably one of the best things you can do is to follow people like Ben, people like maybe smaller personal trainers with like small followings. If you're following folk with big followings, people are attracted to those big followings because of the way they look. People like looking at unrealistic things. If you're following local personal trainers, if you're following performance athletes, so follow a couple of rugby players. They will have physiques that, even if they're not attainable, it's not like ridiculous. And you'll probably pick up some pretty cool like training tips and stuff as well, especially if you are following those like performance-based athletes.
Word. Right,
the only other person that I would throw out is Dan John. Dan John is very worth following for pretty much anyone involved with training. His advice is amazing, and he usually does pitch things at normal people. So he's someone that I would probably look at.
Yeah, I think the nice thing about following someone like Dan John is you get a sense that he's coached some of the world's best. He also coaches teenagers. He also teaches personal trainers, and he's probably one of the guys that keeps it the most simple in the fitness industry. He's like, look, if you're going to train, lift a thing with your hips, with your legs, pull it, push it, carry it, twist it, job done. And then go and eat real food like an adult and do it consistently while being well hydrated and sleep well. And when you think like, a guy with that much experience teaching such a wide range of people is keeping it that simple, we can take confidence that actually doing the simple stuff consistently works an absolute bloody dream.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I really like his work. He's a really nice dude as well. So, always a bonus.
Have you read his new book? Like, it came out within the last year.
No.
I haven't.
What's it called?
I don't know. He wrote a book like 10 years ago, which is amazing, and then he wrote a more recent one, but I've not read it, if I'm honest.
You've written a lot.
Anyway, while Tom's looking and Tom's signal goes to dog shit, I will keep talking. So thank you very much for being on the show today. If you've got a question for the show, please email bencoomber@gmail.com with the subject line podcast, and your question will get thrown in the mix. If you would like to join the nutritional ranks with us, then please check out the Practical Academy at bodytypenutrition.co.uk, and you too can become a nutritional ninja with us over the next year. And don't forget, Awesome Supplements Daily Dose and vegan protein is back in stock. Sorry for delays, but when you make products that good, people, they buy them, which is pretty cool. Thomas, did you find it?
No, but I will just recommend his older book, Never Let Go. It's fantastic.
That's it. That's a great book.
Yeah.
Cool. Tom, what are you reading at the moment?
I'm currently reading The Myth of Mental Illness, which is kind of related to my university course that I'm doing at the minute. So it's all about how the medicalization of mental illnesses is not necessarily a good thing when lifestyle and behavioral interventions can be just as effective. I'm listening to The Art of the Argument by Stefan Molyneux, which is really good. It's talking a lot about critical thinking and why open-minded but rationally created arguments are really effective. Like, I saw a really cool quote that wasn't by him, but it's kind of related recently. Some US person basically stated that you don't actually have a right to an opinion. You've got a right to whatever you can argue for. And I was like, that's really cool. I like that. But yeah, they're my current reading things. I've just got a textbook on sports psychology, which will be the next thing. So I might have some more relevant stuff on the next podcast.
Nice. I'm currently listening to an audiobook called Captivate, which is about human behaviour and why we do things and what attracts us to certain things. So it's kind of a book based around it gives hints and insight into like coaching and leadership, which is two things that are a huge part of my daily role. I'm also reading the Essentials of Strength and Conditioning because of my level 4 strength and conditioning course that I'm currently doing. I have had open for about 6 months Tim Ferriss's book, The Tools of Titans, because it's all broken down into like 3-page chapters. So I quite often read like 3 pages before I go to sleep. It is a flipping epic book. There's some really good stuff in it. There's some really badly worded grammar-based stuff because I swear he's got it translated on Fiverr.com from his podcast. Who knows? But there's some cool stuff in that book. And Tom, you've just given me a book by Sam Harris. What's the title called?
It's Free Will. Calling it a book's a bit generous. It's about 70 pages, but
my kind of book, brother.
It's a really good book. Just thinking on the book that you're reading at the minute, there's another one inside kind of a similar vein. By this evolutionary psychologist called Gad Saad. So there's The Evolutionary Basis of Consumption, which is kind of his textbook. But then there's Consuming Instinct, What Juicy Burgers, Ferraris, Pornography and Gift Giving Do to the Human Brain. They could be quite good reads. They're really interesting.
On it. Nice one. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us on another show. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it and you think something in this show could help someone else, please forward the show to them or tag them in it on social media. The gift of free knowledge is a pretty awesome gift. Otherwise, me and Tom will see you back on the show in another couple of weeks. And next week, I will have a guest. Right, Tom, let's say goodbye.
Goodbye, Ben. Goodbye, everyone. Cheers for listening.
And we will see you all very soon. And in the meantime, stay awesome. Goodbye. Hey everyone, Behaviour Radio, episode number 281.